Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. This is Roy. We are a podcast that we bring a wide variety of guests that talk about a whole diverse set of topics, mainly focusing on our solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses. And so today we are fortunate enough to have Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep is an internationally acclaimed personal advisor and coach to high performing executives and entrepreneurs. He teaches men how to become the complete man, a man who achieves ultimate performance, fulfillment, and victory in every area of his life. He shows men how to live at their highest potential and to be the best possible business leader, husband, father, and man they can be. Uh, he has a very unique approach that it's how to balance life between business and personal goals as a family man. He is one of a few select groups of people that have experience in business, neuroscience, high performance psychology, masculinity, and men in relationships, along with spirituality. Pradeep, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Hey, Roy, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
You bet. And I'm going to be, we talked a little in the pre-show. I'll be the first to throw myself under the bus here and say that, I have a tendency to maybe work a little bit more and not be able to do that good balance. My kids are older. That changes a little bit, but still, I've got a partner and family. So, spending more quality time, being able to detach, because, the other part I think about the integration of business and personal life is sometimes, even though you may not be at your desk doing actual work, you're still thinking about it and you're not present in the moment when you're with your loved ones or doing other things. So anyway, we can just, I'll throw that out there and I'll be the guinea pig. And so we can kind of start unpacking that just a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah. Roy, we've all been there. I face that myself as well. But what you're talking about is very common, especially for guys. A lot of the stuff applies to women as well. But for guys, especially if you're a go-getter, you like to accomplish things, it's
Right.
part of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And I think I said too, I'm very fortunate that I enjoy what I do. So that makes it, I guess, a little bit harder. Maybe if I hated what I did, it'd be like, huh, I'm glad this is over with and I can get up and go. But, it's like, uh, I'm always thinking about, marketing and different avenues, how to tweak this, how to tweak that, writing stuff. It's constant.
Yeah, I guess you could say you're one of the fortunate ones who actually enjoys what you do. Because
Exactly.
there's a lot of guys out there that are spending as much time, if not more time, in their business or their careers, and they're not enjoying it. Unfortunately, they're caught in a different
Right.
trap.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that makes it harder even when you do get to detach and go be with your loved ones, that if you're kind of hating what you're doing, you may have that bad attitude that you kind of carry with you there.
Yeah, exactly. That or you're that much more thankful for having them around, right? Because
Right. So, because our show kind of, we reach out to a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. So, what are some tips that, especially for those just getting started, how can we put up some boundaries or some guidelines that we know, maybe we're overdoing it and it's time to do things a little bit different?
yeah, that's a really good question. I would say from my experience is that a lot of us, when we get into business and in entrepreneurship, we end up going into the business first and then start thinking about the lifestyle and all those other things after. So we end up building basically our life backwards for a lot of people. And I always get people to think about what kind of emotions they want to live by on a day-to-day basis. So some people like to have excitement, like to have their day full of excitement, full of challenges. They're the firefighters. They like to go out there and have that adrenaline rush. There's other people that just like to have more peaceful days. They want to have a content life. They want to have a peaceful life. They want to be able to chill more, and they want to have, you can say, more of a balanced type of a emotional state. That's where you really need to figure out, first of all. That's the first thing. And you're probably wondering, Roy, what does emotions have to do with anything? Well, it has everything to do with your business. It has everything to do with the quality of your life, because your quality of your life is dependent on the emotions that you feel. And the quality of your business is also dependent on your performance, which a lot of your performance is based on your emotions. So if you start with emotions first, you can actually build your life backwards and say, okay, what kind of emotions do I want to feel on a regular basis? And I'll give you an example. There was this one young gentleman that I was working with. And when he first came to me, he said he wanted to make $100 million a year. He was doing pretty good, but his goal was to hit 100 million. I said, well, that's a pretty big aspiration compared to where you are right now. So tell me, what kind of lifestyle do you want? What kind of emotions do you want to feel on a regular basis? And one of his top emotions was peace and content. And I basically said to him, I said, you know what? I coach executives and entrepreneurs that are making $100 million a year. Do you know that peace and content is not one of the emotions that they feel on a regular basis? Because when you have a business that big, there's going to be a lot of problems. There's going to be a lot of challenges. And so, when he got that into his mind, he said, okay, that makes sense. He pulled back his revenue figures and realized that he didn't need $100 million business to feel that. So you start from emotions, then you take a look at your lifestyle, and then you say, okay, what kind of lifestyle will support those emotions? And then you take a look at your business and you say, what kind of business will support that lifestyle? Whereas most entrepreneurs just get into the business aspect. They consider the lifestyle a little bit, but they're not building their business around their lifestyle. They build their lifestyle around their business.
Right. I think that's important to distinguish because, there's a lot of reasons people get into business. Sometimes they fall into it. Sometimes it's because they want more control over their schedule in their life, or they want to make more money. And, to me, more money is nice, but it should translate into a better life or a different lifestyle is kind of where I go with that. But unfortunately, I think that we can, instead of the dog wagging the tail, unfortunately, we get into it and then the tail starts wagging the dog. We let the business dictate what we do instead of the other way around. And I think, there's a lot of things for that delegation. Some of us that start out small solopreneurs, the delegation factor is really difficult to find somebody you can trust enough to do things the way that you want them. And then I think maybe there could be a twinge of perfectionism in there too, that we have to learn that, there is a quality range that doesn't have to be off the charts for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if the more you know about yourself and what you enjoy doing and what you don't enjoy doing, the more successful your business will be. There's people that I work with that do not like to sell, and they're solopreneurs and they don't like to sell. They like to service their clients or their customers, but they're stuck in their business because they're continuing to service themselves and they're their own bottleneck. And so even building a team for them is difficult because they don't have those leadership or managerial skills. So you have to say, okay, and be realistic and say, okay, what kind of, what are my skills? What am I good at? What am I not so good at? What do I enjoy doing? Do I not enjoy doing? And what am I willing to change about myself? Because you may not be willing to sell today or be comfortable selling today, but will you be comfortable selling tomorrow? Will you be comfortable leading and managing a team a year from now? Those are all things that to take into consideration.
Yeah, and this is like kind of off topic, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's worth mentioning that, I do a lot of work with looking at employee retention. And of course, we talk about hiring, or I talk about, the front end, the hiring, onboarding, and all that stuff on the front end is very important. So I think that translates some into this, that as the solopreneur, we make a quick hire, or we don't really put a lot of time and thought into that hire. We make a bad hire, they come in, and then it sours us on hiring people, and then it's like, okay, well, I've tried that, it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And so I think that gets back to the planning that, if things start growing out from under you, or you have things like you said, maybe if you don't like to sell, if you're going to hire a salesperson, do your due diligence and really set out a plan for yourself on how, don't just, fling an ad up on Indeed and take the first person that answers it, because, it will very much turn you off on that process for sure.
And I think one of the fastest ways for people to grow their business is realize that when you have the right people on your team, you will grow faster.
Right.
This is something
Yeah.
that I've used for decades from a business perspective, and it takes some getting to used to for people that aren't comfortable with giving things up or relying on other people. But I always say, take a look at the who versus the what, because for me, um, and sometimes we fall into this trap as solopreneurs. We take on something that we don't necessarily, or we shouldn't be. We start to
Right.
learn things and we become experts in areas that don't make us money or don't make us as much money, and we're better off to
Right.
give to someone else. And for
Right.
example, even myself, I'm constantly looking at strategic partners to say, and I personally, the way I've structured my businesses is that I keep a core amount of staff on, minimal. That gives us a competitive advantage. Everything else is we outsource, because I will let the experts do the things that they're good at. And I don't want to build that expertise
Right.
within my own organization unless it's actually going to give me an advantage. And a lot of times it doesn't.
Right.
And it saves me a lot of time from a hiring perspective, from a management perspective, where I can just outsource and say, okay, this is what my expectations are, and I'm expecting your organization to get those results.
Right. Yeah, that's very important. Is we, those break even or back office tasks that we can successfully outsource. It's also, it's a great option. But, back to that team building is, we need to really take into account who we surround ourselves with for a lot of reasons. Not only, skill, we have to look at some skills to hire, but, I want to look at the quality of the person, because, you're going to, if it's a small business, especially, you're going to have to depend on each other, and you're going to have to see this person. Well, maybe in these days we don't see each other enough, but you're going to have interaction with them. So we definitely want people who have our same ideology and I guess personality, people that we can mesh with, and then we can teach them the intricacies of the skill, for our particular business that we need them to have.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So then, you know, once we decide to walk, once we decide that it's over with for today, I'm stepping back. Kids have a baseball game or whatever's going on. What are some tips that can keep us from drifting? While we're sitting there watching, it's like we start thinking about the 10 things that we want to do or need to do. Do you have any good tips, like how we could kind of stay on track to stay in the moment with what we're doing?
Yeah, wow. You just opened up Pandora's box there, because that's a big one. That's probably the biggest challenge entrepreneurs face, right? We don't have that clear line between work and personal life, and it constantly gets blended. When we're with our families, we're constantly thinking about work, and when at work, we're constantly thinking about, okay, I got to be a better parent or a better spouse or whatever
Right.
that is.
Yeah.
So here's something, because I have a neuroscience background, I've melded the worlds of business and neuroscience together, because business is operated by people, and people are creatures of neuroscience. We're creatures of our bodies, we're creatures of our mind, especially. And so this is one of the things I struggled with personally, because I was a high performer, I was a high achiever, and I was constantly thinking about, okay, I was sitting with my family, and I faced this myself. I'd had 2 young kids, and I'd be in la la land thinking about, okay, this is what I can do for my marketing strategy. This is, all of these great things. And I said, I can't do this
Right.
anymore. Like, it's just not fair to my kids, and I'm going to miss these moments. So here's the approach that I take and that I coach other men to take, and it works very well. And these are principles from neuroscience. The first thing that we need to
Okay.
understand is that our brain is a goal-driven organ, and it likes to finish tasks. Because if there's an unfinished task, our brain will just constantly be thinking about it. It's like, those moments when someone says, oh, do you remember that movie and that so-and-so's actor's that name? You know the name, but you can't recall it. And you're just constantly thinking about it, and it bugs the crap out of you. Well, that's
Yeah.
because your brain doesn't like unanswered questions or unfinished tasks, and it keeps thinking about it. So at the end of the day, always check off your last task. Always finish it. Now, you might have this big task or a big project that you might not be able to finish. Create a mini task for yourself. So just create something where you say, I've finished it, you check it off and you say, I'm done. That mentally gives your brain this cue that says, okay, you're done. You can move on to the next thing. And the next thing to do is actually incorporate a ritual, because rituals are important because they are signs for, and they tell your brain that you're actually going into a different mode, a different chapter of your day or your life. So if you create a ritual, I know guys that literally they will just scrumple up a piece of paper and just throw it and be like, I'm done, right? Or they'll slam their laptop shut and they'll be like, I'm done. That's telling their brain that they're done for the day. So creating a
Right.
ritual is important. The third thing is creating a new identity or transitioning yourself into a new identity. So having different identities is important in life. So if you think about it, as entrepreneurs, we don't approach or we don't behave the same way at work with our employees as we do with our kids. That would be kind of silly, right? But when we're with our kids, we have a different identity. And the classic one I like to use is a Disney dad for my kids. And I like to have that moment where I laugh and I joke around with them. So I know that when I'm going from work, now I'm transitioning from being a boss and entrepreneur, I'm transitioning into Disney dad. I have this new identity and I'm giving my mind a target now to play within a new role. And that's
Right.
important because now you're letting go of that old role of being that entrepreneur and boss. And the reason why that's important is because if you continue to use the same identity in your personal life, you're going to get caught in that trap and you're not going to be able to get out of that old thinking. And
Yeah.
then here's something that's really important. And this is where a lot of people struggle is you need to have goals outside of work. You need to have goals with your family. You need to have goals with your marriage. And they can be mini goals. So for example, one of my goals with my kids is just to make them laugh for 5 minutes. When I'm done work, I just make them laugh. That's my goal. Whatever I can do to make them laugh. And your brain is a goal-driven organ. And if your brain doesn't have a goal outside of work, well, guess where it gets pulled back to all the time? The goal that it consistently knows, which is back to work, your revenue
Right.
targets
Right.
or your sales targets or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So if you give it goals for your family, for your kids, for your relationship, then you're more likely to stay within those goals and be more present. Now, those are the four things that I recommend. Finish the task,
Okay.
have a ritual, have a new identity for your family, and create a goal for those moments with your family. Now, on top of that, you can do other things like have mindfulness practices or meditation that really help ground you and really calm your brain down. But those are four simple things that you can do on a day-to-day basis that really structure your day to get you out of that work mode and enjoy your family.
Yeah. No, those are great tips. And I think the one that, you hit on was that different identity, because so many times we can continue to be the boss. We can continue to be the boss at home and somebody is quick to tell you that you're not my boss, or, this isn't work. So you need to get out of that space. But I think that's awesome too about, having goals and writing them down for your family and personal time. Never thought about that, but that's a great idea. Another thing I think is one thing I do is, you have tools. So if you do have an idea, you can text yourself, send a quick email. I find that if I get my thought off of my mind where I know I can pick it up later, I am much more calmer than trying to think, okay, I got to remember that, for the next hour till I get to where I need to be. So, be sure to have those tools at your disposal where you can just jot down a note and be done. And then the other thing is sometimes it's good to, what I find I can do is just take a deep breath and, kind of not full meditation, I don't guess, but just take a deep breath and remind yourself where you're at and what you should be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's unfortunate, but sometimes families suffer at the expense of business, and it should be the other. I think our business, and if we have a family, that's where we should want it to do, is support that lifestyle, that give us more time.
Yeah, and you know what? You just hit something really important because that is the unfortunate reality for a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of people, men and women, get into entrepreneurship because they want to provide their families with a better life. But if you talk to their spouses and you talk to their kids, they will tell you that they want to spend more time with you. They want you
Right.
to be around more present. So it's actually in reverse. And we got to break that cycle. The faster you can break that cycle and be, you can say,
Right.
consistent with your own behavior, the faster you'll be able to actually have a more successful business as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier, but sometimes our personal life carries over into our business and business into personal. And so, we don't take care of that personal life and those relationships. I think that stress that comes from there can hamper our performance or make us not a very nice person to be around at work. Sometimes, sometimes we don't say things at home, then we come take it out on employees or
Mm-hmm.
customers or other people, and that is not a good plan for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we coming through the holidays, it's been it's a tough time for a lot of entrepreneurs, but I just think it's good just to if you plan ahead, set that time aside if you possibly can, just to say this is family time, and we just have to take the time to enjoy life and enjoy those moments that we have.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So, what about the spirituality part? I think that, it's kind of a touchy subject. Some people believe in the spirituality, some people don't. I personally do, because I think, my opinion is we need to believe in there's a higher person. It doesn't have to all be the same person, but there's a higher person for each of us. And so, how do we, I guess, how can we mesh that in to kind of help? I guess it would help us even more.
Hmm. Well, I'll talk about it from a spiritual perspective, because I think whether some people have their own individual faith, some people have a belief in an energy source, but just a belief in something more. That's how I define spirituality. Is there's something more than what we see and what we feel
Right.
here on a day-to-day basis. And I think we need to have that, because that gives us a little bit more hope when things aren't going that well. For example, COVID, a lot of people have lost their jobs or businesses, and they're down and
Yes.
out. And having that faith is critical. I can remember being a kid, some of the toughest times of losing family members. It, our faith is what got us through. But from a spiritual
Right.
perspective now, science is catching up, and it's actually showing now that we're at a time where science and spirituality is intersecting, where I'm going to speak about it from an energy perspective. We know that there's an energy out there that scientists don't even understand. We know that we as human beings operate on energy. We are literally just walking, talking. Most of our body, our being, is made up of energy more than matter. If you take a look at the actual matter within our body, it's phenomenal to actually see. If you condensed it, it's less than a speck of sand, a grain of sand. Everything
Wow.
else,
Okay.
yeah, is actually built around energy, which is phenomenal if you think about it. So what does that mean? That means that we are experiencing life through energy. That means that we absorb energy. That means that we give off energy. And that means that we have to be cognizant of our energy. We have to be cognizant of our, not only our cognitive, our mental energy, but also our emotional energy, because the emotions that we give off, if we think about it, is a form of energy. Other people around us are absorbing it. So our family members are absorbing our energy. We are absorbing our family members' energy. And that's why I'm very, my wife and I have very, you can say, deep conversations about this. She believes in spirituality as well, and I'm constantly telling her, you know what? Because she deals with cancer patients, and she deals with dying patients every day, and she has to be very conscious not to bring that energy home, because it's very tough on her. But you can feel that energy when she comes home, even if she doesn't say
Right.
anything. So we have to be very open about this, and because there's positive energy, and then there's not so positive energy. I don't like to say right or wrong or good or evil, but there's an
Right.
empowering energy and there's a disempowering energy, and we know that, we can feel that. And the reason why I say this, if I take a look at it from a scientific perspective, is that we need energy to function appropriately and properly. Our limited resource, a lot of people say time is our most important resource. And from my personal experience, I believe that energy is, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs who have an hour of time or 2 hours of time or an entire evening of time with their family members, but they don't have the energy to enjoy it.
Right.
Right? They've worked their butts off at work or whatever it is in their business, and they don't
Yeah.
have the energy level to enjoy life to the fullest. And think about it, when we are not at our highest energy level, we are not operating the best. We're not thinking the
Right.
best, right? And we're not able to contribute, because a lot of times Roy, when you talked about us being present, a big part of that is energy. We just might not have the energy to be as active with our kids, to play around with our kids. We just want to enjoy and veg, right? We want to veg
Right. Right.
and just neutralize ourselves. That's where energy comes in. And we'll notice, there are times, whether it's a moment of faith or a moment of something else, where whether it's mindfulness or meditation, that just by taking that moment to just feel the energy, we can re-energize ourselves.
Right.
And I think this is something that we a lot of entrepreneurs have forgotten, because they're just so busy, right? Day in and day out doing the same old thing. But if you focus on the energy, if I was to say, what is the one thing that the entrepreneurs I work with want, and we're talking about high performing entrepreneurs, is they want more energy. They want to be able to get more done within a specific time period. They want to be able to be more energetic. They want to be able to be more outgoing or charismatic with their children or people around them, but they just might not have that energy. And so that's where spirituality comes in too. It's a form of energy that I wish I could explain, Roy, and
Yeah.
say, you know what, this is how it works. But even, it's tough to explain something that you just can't put your finger on.
Right. No, for sure. And I think there's a lot of evidence that spiritual side, not only can help us in healing, but also in that energy, which gets back to, we talk about building our team and who we surround ourselves with. We need to understand that in our personal life too, that, we want to hang out with positive people that give us that positive affirmation, instead of, sometimes we may have old friends that are negative, and it can just drag us down. And so, it's we need to be very conscious of that too, where we spend our time, because sometimes it's just, my partner calls them energy suckers. She said, that, that person just like sucks the life out of you. And then, I think the other thing is, we talk about energy, and this is just my personal experience, is that, I've got a list hanging over my desk of things that I need to do every day. Breathe. I catch myself holding my breath, when I get involved or get really into something. And so, those deep breaths, get sleep, drink water, or exercise. Because I know that when, like you said, when I'm doing all those things right, I have much more energy, and then also sometimes much more clarity. Like if I get a little jammed up, if I just go take a 5-minute walk outside, it seems like I just have this uncanny clarity all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
So I think, yeah. So I think we need to take care of ourselves in order to, to make all these other things happen as well.
Yeah, if we take a look at it, one of the biggest things, and energy is important, because we as entrepreneurs, as solopreneurs, have roadblocks all the time. We come up against obstacles every single day. And what ends up happening is that we need to overcome those obstacles. And in order to overcome those obstacles, you got to be creative, and you got to have creative energy to be able to do that. So a lot of the times, if we feel stuck, we're not able to be creative. But if we have that energy, we have that drive, we can say, okay, this challenge is nothing. We can just, there's something that we can do to overcome this. And you'll notice at some point in time, that idea, that thought, whatever it is, will come to you. That insight comes to you when you have that level of energy you need.
Yeah. This was more of a study that was geared toward kids, but basically, what the research was trying to show was that, in today we overschedule kids, not only with outside events, but we have electronics, video games. We just have a lot of stimulation going on. And what the research was saying is that our kids tend not to be as creative as some of us old timers. We had to go out and find some creative way to play with rocks and sticks out in the dirt pile. And so I think that translates into business, into the fact that if we're trying to write or solve a problem, uh, or even develop a new product, a new service, or a twist to what we're doing, is we have to schedule that time where we can just be, and give our body and our mind time to be creative.
Hmm. There's two things. There's two resources that I tell entrepreneurs to really pay attention to. I don't even take into the time aspect. I don't really talk about, but there's two. The one is the energy aspect that we talked about. The second is
Mm-hmm.
focus. Those are the two biggest things that you can do to impact your business and life. Always pay attention to where your focus is, and always pay attention, because where your focus is, that's where your energy is also going as well. So if you can maintain your focus in the ways that you need to from an empowering standpoint, right? If you're focusing on the worry and all the crap or the business debt you might have, that's where you're going to continue to get. That's where your energy is going to go. But if you're focusing on solutions, if you're focusing on how you can make more sales to pay down your debt, all of these kinds of things that are more empowering, you're going to be better off. This ultimately works because it's a compound effect. The people that are the most successful, the entrepreneurs that are the most successful out there, are the ones that know how to keep their focus on the areas that they need to and push their energy towards that.
Yeah, we need, kind of in that vein too, we need to drive out the front windshield and not, drive looking in the rear view mirror, because sometimes that can definitely take our focus. If we focus on the past instead of the future where we need to go, that can definitely drain our focus and our energy both as well.
As you know, and that's a good point, because that requires forgiveness, right? That
Yes.
requires a lot of self-forgiveness. Because
Yeah.
if we take a look at our past mistakes, it's good to take a look at some of our mistakes, because they're learning points. They give us opportunity to say, I could do this better. But when we come into that guilt trip, that's when it really becomes a hindrance. And a lot of us do.
Right.
Everybody does. But that's where we have to be more self-forgiving and be and actually tell ourselves, I made that mistake. It's okay. I just need to move on.
Right. Right. Yeah, we're all going to make mistakes, and being forgiving, and also the gratitude. I think that one thing we've come through the pandemic, a lot more people are starting to understand gratitude. But uh, at the end of the day, I'm guilty of, I had 10 things on my list today and I only got 7 done. I left 3, and I can really beat myself up over that. Whereas, I'm trying to flip the switch and say, hey, you know what? I got 7, pretty good. We'll carry those 3 till tomorrow, and uh, you know, give ourselves a break and be gracious for what we actually did get done that day, and for what is going right in our life. There's a lot of right for most of us. There's a lot of things that are going right for us. We just need to focus and give thanks for those as well.
Hmm. I was thinking about this today on my daily walk, because I typically do my daily videos, my social media videos, when I go for my walks. And this today, I was thinking about the concept of self-love and how we need to be better at, especially for guys, because the concept of giving yourself love is tough. And when you do that, you have this sense of, how would I say, peace, content, inner, even clarity, but confidence. But if you can't love yourself, it's tough to give love to other people as well. As much as you feel like you may be a loving person, you can give that much more love if you actually give yourself some self love. And ultimately, it's an exercise that I do myself and I get guys to do, is just put your left hand on your chest. And this has been shown through what they call coherence testing, that if you put your left hand on your chest and you breathe in a certain rhythm, in a regular deep breath rhythm, that your heart and your mind will actually synchronize. It's called heart mind coherence. And when they actually synchronize, you actually become in a lot more peaceful, more, you can say, a gratitude state. And it helps a lot with reducing stress. It helps a lot with reducing cortisol in your body and rebalancing you so you can actually think more effectively. And I highly encourage everybody just try that exercise, even for 30 seconds or a minute. Just play some, whatever music is comfortable for you, whatever the soothing or whatever it is, be in a dark room, whatever is comfortable, just deep breaths, but put your left hand on your heart and actually breathe. And you'll realize that, and brain scans have actually shown this, EEGs have actually shown that the mind and the brain will actually start to synchronize. Whereas in most parts of our days, because we're so busy, our minds and our hearts are off track. They're not synchronized because of the stress, because of the busyness. And that causes not only cognitive disorder, but also physical as well. It stops our body from healing itself. So there's a lot of different aspects, positive aspects that can help by doing this.
That's interesting. I'll have to give that a try.
Mhm.
Well, Pradeep, we certainly do appreciate you taking time out of your day again to join us. So tell me, what is one tool, a habit, a ritual? What is something that you do every day in your personal life or your business life that you just don't think that you could do without?
Wow, that I could do without. Oh, this is a really so from uh, a tool.
Yeah, a tool or habit, just anything that you
Well,
do every
I
day that you feel like is good for you.
yeah, the one, I have different habits. The one thing that I cannot do without is visualization. That is something that I do on a regular basis. It is something that grounds me. It helps me with my creativity. Um, I can be in the crappiest mood and have the crappiest situations happen in my business or other aspects, but just going back and being able to visualize, part of that is through meditation. But that really, if I can say what has helped me get to the point where I am today in my business or any other level, it's visualization. I truly believe in the power of visualization.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks a lot again. Tell everybody, who is your client? What can you do for them? And then, of course, how can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Yeah, thanks, Roy. I appreciate that. So I have two different arms of our business. We have a consulting practice where we help organizations in a number of different areas, from building high performance teams, for example, to business operations, marketing, different areas. And then my personal side, in terms of what I love to do, is coach entrepreneurs and executives. I love working with individuals, specifically with men, because that's the area that I focus on. And it really, help them get success in all areas of their life. So we work on business leadership, we work on fatherhood, we work on even relate like marriage, for example. But it's more about that individual. How do we make that person what I call the complete man? Actually, we just released the book The Complete Man, and it's all about that aspect where man can achieve fulfillment, success, and victory in every area of life. You can find me on pretty much every social media channel at Purdeep Sangha. I'm available, I'm active, and feel free to reach out.
Okay. Well, great. Everybody reach out. I know that Pradeep can make your life, your personal life and your business life better. Some great tips and information today. So again, thank you very much. That's going to do it for this episode of the Business of Business podcast. You can find us at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast. Of course, we're on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we will be putting this up on YouTube as well. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other.